Just a quick programming reminder, I'm going to be speaking with Yashwant Sinha, former finance minister and joint opposition candidate, on whether he can really win this electoral fight ahead in the show, so stay tuned for that. But let me begin with the story of the day that we will deep dive into. So, Teesta Setalvad, political activist, has been identified with the fight for victims of the 2002 Gujarat Riots for decades. She's been vocal and unfettered in her criticism of the BJP, Narendra Modi and the Gujarat government. She has accused the Prime Minister, who was then Gujarat Chief Minister, of allowing Muslims to be attacked during the post-Godhra riots. But was she doing this out of sheer goodwill or malice? This is what the courts will possibly decide in the days to come. Today, days after Setalvad and B.R. Srikumar, a retired police officer, were taken into custody by the Gujarat police, protests have broken out in some cities. Civil rights activists are protesting the arrest, saying Teesta and others are being targeted for standing up for the riot victims. In fact, these are some of the protests. You've had protests in Delhi, Kolkata, Bengaluru and Mumbai as well. Now, the Kerala Chief Minister and the CPIM have also been vocal with their support of Teesta and condemnation of the police's action. Interestingly, while the Congress, who pursued the charges against Modi in the Gujarat riots, have put out an 8-point note on his role, they have not said much about Teesta. So what exactly happened? Let me go through the sequence of events. Now, last Friday, on the 24th of June, the Supreme Court dismissed Zakia Jafri's appeal against the findings of the SIT that gave Narendra Modi a clean chit in the 2002 riots. Jafri is widow of former MP Azad Jafri, who was killed with several others in the post-Godhra violence. Now, as part of the order, the Supreme Court spoke about how there was abuse of power and mischief that kept the pot boiling. A day after this order, the Ahmedabad police filed an FIR against Teesta Setalvad, B.R. Srikumar and Sanjeev Bhatt. Srikumar and Bhatt were both police officers at that time and had made some very serious charges against the role of the state government led by Modi at the time during the riots. Now, the same day, the Ahmedabad police arrive in Mumbai and arrest Teesta from her residence. She then files a handwritten complaint with a local police station in Mumbai, saying her life is under threat. Earlier that day, that's on Saturday, Home Minister Amit Shah gave an interview to news agency ANI, where he spoke in great detail on the Supreme Court order, and in one of his responses also named Teesta as one of the people who gave baseless information. So this is sort of the sequence of events. Let's get into the detail of what that FIR said. Now, this is important. The FIR quotes extensively from the Supreme Court order, but also reiterates earlier charges against Teesta. These charges include fabricating false evidence, forgery for the purpose of cheating, using forged documents as genuine. That's one of the charges also made in the FIR, and criminal conspiracy. Now, in court, the Gujarat government has also said that Teesta has been tutoring the witnesses in the Gujarat riots case. She got some witnesses to sign on typed affidavits instead of giving their own statements, etc. There are, of course, a slew of other charges against Teesta Setalvad and her NGO over the years, including misappropriation of funds, etc. Now, the question today is the accusation of a witch hunt that civil rights activists are making against Teesta and others valid? Has action been taken for seeking political accountability? At the end of the day, is that the reason for this arrest? And is there truth? This is also important because we have to look at this from every angle. Is there truth to the charge on fabrication of evidence while trying to build a case over all these years by Teesta Setalvad and others? Interesting question politically. Why is the Congress today shying away from backing Teesta and others? To speak more on this, I'm joined now by Yogendra Yadav. He's the president of Swarajya India, and Zafar Sareshwala, former Chancellor of the Maulana Azad National Urdu University. Welcome to both of you, and thank you so much for speaking with us today on Beyond the Headline. Mr. Yadav, let me begin with your take on what's been happening. I mean, at this point, do you think that we should allow the law to take its own course? Because some of these charges framed against Teesta Setalvad and others are fairly serious ones. And have they now been bolstered after what the Supreme Court order says?
Tamanna, I cannot even begin speaking today, this evening, without referring to the fact that Zubair Mohammed has been arrested, someone who's carried a campaign for truthful journalism in this country, someone who's exposed both the fake news proposed by the regime, also fake news that was targeted at the BJP. Both he exposed. Someone who has questioned hate speech of the Hindu variety and of the Muslim variety. Today he's been arrested, and that's not entirely unrelated to what is happening to Teesta. So what is the image that we are sending to the world? The image is that Ms. Nupur Sharma is not arrested, and the man who actually pointed out what she did has been arrested. Those guilty of Gujarat riots have not been punished, but those who wanted to bring them to the book have been arrested. That is unfortunately the larger message that we are giving to the world. I'm no legal expert. I would not get into the specifics, and of course, goes without saying that the law must take its own course. But we have seen something extraordinary. We must underline that. It is not unusual in our country for those who are responsible for riots to get away. This used to happen during Congress regimes as well. 1984, virtually no one was punished. Maulana, all kinds of other killings, people were not punished. But it is for the first time that those who are trying to bring the guilty to the book are being sought to punished. This did not happen even during this massacre of the 6th. And it is for the first time that the Supreme Court of India is being used, rightly or wrongly, I think wrongly, is being the directions or the observations of the Supreme Court of India are being used as a shield for witch hunt.
I was going to come to you on that, Mr. Yadav. Now, the thing with the Gujarat riots, and of course, it's not just a story, it's a huge event in our political history. It's had ramifications for decades. Those of us who've been tracking it have seen all the twists and turns. But you've had an SIT, which gave quote-unquote clean chit to the then government, because the question was the role of the state government. Then you had a Supreme Court order which has reiterated it, and that Supreme Court order does not name Teesta specifically, but it does say that there should be action against those who kept the pot boiling. Now, why should we presume that there should be no follow-up on this?
Allow me to mention a few things. Number one, I'm glad you remembered the SIT. Who appointed the SIT? The Supreme Court of India. Why did they appoint it? Because Supreme Court of India thought that the standard law and order machinery in Gujarat could not be trusted with fair trial of the case. So the idea that something was weird about the way Gujarat investigations were taking place did not originate in Teesta Setalvad's head. This was endorsed by the Supreme Court of India, which played a heroic role, I must say. Second, in many cases, you think someone is guilty, you want to get that person punished, you fail to gather enough evidence. This routinely happens. In some cases, the courts do get annoyed with someone who's trying to pursue it and occasionally say, why are you doing it? Occasionally, courts actually pass a remark or two. But for the court to say that they should be brought to book, that is very, very unusual, very sad, and would send extremely worrisome signals. But the worst thing, Tamanna, is that even the Supreme Court did not say go and arrest her. They said investigate. All right, investigate. You think there's malafide? Someone could say, well, these people went overboard, were over enthusiastic. That's all. But Supreme Court goes one step further. But the Gujarat police goes 7 steps further, goes and arrests her. How is that warranted? There's, after all, a set law of the land about who can be arrested. If tomorrow there's a case against you or me, Tamanna, it's not that the police would begin by arresting us. We would be asked questions. There would be a due process. And finally, when the police says, all right, there is absolutely no way of getting more information unless we take this person in custody and do whatever is required after that, How is it that all this happened within 24 hours? And is it not extraordinary that the Supreme Court gives a judgment? Within a few hours, the Home Minister of the country gives an interview, names Teesta Setalvad. The court did not, but the Home Minister does. And then within a few hours, Maharashtra police is there, Gujarat police is there in Mumbai. And allow me to finally mention the fact that the same Supreme Court of India had passed similar strictures against Mr. Taney, Ajay Mishra Taney, who continues to be minister in the Council of Ministers in the union government. Why was no such investigation carried out? No investigation, no inquiry, no arrest. Are we taking Supreme Court so seriously?
Okay, so Yogendra Yadav is questioning what he says are double standards, the alacrity with which the Gujarat police has acted in this case. Zafar Sareshwala, I want your response to the point that Mr. Yadav and others are making, saying that a message is being sent that whoever questions this government will be punished. Do you agree with that take?
See, I want to go, the message with the Teestas of the world had started in 2003. You know, Tamanna, my family and myself, we were the biggest victims of 2002 riots. My house was burnt, my office was burnt, my factory was burnt, we were reduced to ashes. And if you remember, it was horrific. The government figure says that almost 1,600 people were killed, or maybe more, about 2,000. And most of the deaths were brutal. In Ahmedabad city alone, more than 1,000 business establishments were burnt. Okay. Now all this had happened. Now I have questions. I want to ask these questions. You know, the people who were the forerunner in burning of Muslim houses, in killing, they were led by 4 or 5 people which are known to the world. The first mob, which was led by Mr. Harin Pandya, who was the sitting minister at that time and who was brutally killed after some time. My house was burnt under his leadership. He and his gang, they burnt a mosque. And not only that, they, to abuse Muslims and to insult Muslims, this Harin Pandya's cahoots, they stood there, removed their pants and urinated at the sanctum sanctorium of the mosque and in public view. He was the main person. Second was Gordhan Zadafia. Third was Dr. Praveen Togadia, Jaideep Patel and Babu Bajrangi. These were the people, thousands of people had witnessed. But Teesta and the Teesta world did not bring them at all to book. They did not even mention their name. So what was it? Because they had some agenda against Mr. Modi. Now, no Muslim in Gujarat ever thought that Mr. Modi is responsible. The worst, people thought that yes, he is the chief minister, so the buck stops with him. But Mr. Modi was involved in doing all this? Nobody ever thought. But here were the people who were there on the ground, burning Muslims, killing Muslims. Their name was not mentioned by Teesta. So actually, you know what? After some time, a group of Muslims thought that there are 6 million Muslims in Gujarat. I want to complete this. 6 million Muslims are there. Mr. Modi has won the election, you know, 2/3 majority in December of 2002. In 2003, we thought, why not sit down and talk with Mr. Modi? Now, I am one of those persons who took Mr. Modi to the International Court of Justice. Mr. Modi's visa was rejected on my petition. I had hand-delivered petition in April 2002 to Colin Powell. So I don't want lessons from people who are in that business. So I've done all that. But we thought at that time that let's sit down and talk. The moment we decided to talk, Mr. Teesta and the Teestas of the world abused us. They called us names. मीर जाफर sold out, बिक गए, कितने में गए? तो मतलब anybody who has a different view than Teestas of the world means you are sold out. So I'm coming now to a position now, which I have been consistent since 2003, that Teestas and the world had an agenda. They had nothing to do with Muslims' miseries. On the contrary, they built their Taj Mahal on the graves of the Muslims. They made our wounds their ornament. And they thrived on the multi-million-dollar business of Muslim miseries. So Teesta and the world are this, and I have been consistent on that. What the court is doing now, or what it is happening, I am not bothered about that.
Mr. Sareshwala, can I just ask you?
No, I'm not bothered about that.
No, okay, fine, sir. May I ask you, what do you think her agenda is? Why would Teesta and the Teestas of the world, by which I assume you mean rights activists who have been talking about riot victims, why would they go on and on about this for 16, 20 years? What is this agenda?
It is a business. It is a multi-million-dollar business. How on earth Teestas and the world travel first class? They stay in 7-star hotels. Their lifestyle, have you seen? They receive multi-million-dollar money. It is a business. And the business is what? To keep Muslims as victims always and to thrive on their miseries. This is a business.
Does she deserve to go to does she deserve to be arrested?
And you know what?
Does she deserve to be arrested, Mr. Sareshwala, for
that
what, according to her, is helping people?
No, she has not helped Muslims at all. You come out of this. She has not helped a single Muslim. You tell me there were 2,000 people who were killed. How many people's house she visited except the Jafri? You think, Tamanna, that except Mr. Ehsan Jafri, there was not a single death. Muslims want education. Muslims want to increase their business. Muslims want to come out in life. They want to appear in examinations. This is what Muslims want. They don't want that you use them as your shoulder to fire your agenda.
Okay. I just want Mr. Yadav to quickly respond to some of the things Zafar Sareshwala has said. Because that is truly the other side of the argument. That was there an agenda which was keeping the pot boiling?
Tamanna, normally one would argue, offer a response to an argument if there was any. What we have heard is personal animus. Now he has a personal conduct against Teesta. He's entitled to one. I can also have conduct to someone. But to allow national television time to be used for someone to vent his personal conduct, it is below the standards that I have expected from Mirror Now. Mirror Now has been different from other channels, and I'm really sorry to see your channel time being used for things of this kind. I would not go into even responding to some of these things. Please sort out your...
Tamanna, listen to me.
Allow me to speak now. Please allow me to speak.
I don't want Mr. Yogendra Yadav to give me lessons. No, Tamanna, I told you before.
One minute. Mr. Sareshwala, you will answer my questions as you have requested.
Business with you.
No. 1 minute.
I told you.
1 minute. Mr. Sareshwala, you said you will take only my questions. You will be taking only my questions. Mr. Yadav, I would request you. 1 minute. What is the point of everyone screaming? Mr. Sareshwala, hold on.
Who has thrived on Muslim miseries. I will not allow you to do this.
Okay, 1 minute.
No, I will not allow this Yogendra Yadavs of the world to thrive on our miseries.
Mr. Sareshwala, everyone gets a chance to speak here.
I will not
1 minute. Everyone gets a chance to speak here. Everyone gets a chance to speak here, and I decide. I decide, sir. You said you want to answer my questions. You will do that, Mr. Sareshwala, but you cannot ask me who to ask, what to, nor can Mr. Yadav. Mr. Yadav does not like that I have called you on the show. That's too bad. You don't like that I have called him on the show. That's too bad. My responsibility is to my viewers. So, gentlemen, I request you once again, let's calmly move forward. Because the least we deserve to give our viewers is a chance to listen to all arguments, whether the people on the screen like what the other person is saying or not. Let's give that chance. Now, Mr. Yadav, I request you to continue without making any allegations on Mr. Sareshwala's agenda. You are saying he has kundak. He is saying Teesta has agenda. He is saying you have benefited. Why are we making it personal? Right? Both of you are here because you represent a thought which is out there.
Yes. Tamanna, you've been on television, national television. If a co-panelist says things of this kind, like Ms. Nupur Sharma had said, it is absolutely the responsibility of the anchor and co-panelist to come and say, this is not on. This is not debate. I'm sorry. But allow me to continue with my argument, because I would offer argument. I would not get into the personal things. And I'm very happy to see that now you are controlling the show, not him. I am entitled to speak because I was invited to speak.
Mr. Yogendra Yadav, you talk about yourself.
Mr. Sareshwala, hold on, please, sir. Mr. Sareshwala, hold on. He's not talking about you. One second. He's not talking about you. Hold on, Mr. Sareshwala. He will not, no, 1 minute. He will not talk about you. He is talking about the question I have asked him, which is a point of view of do these people deserve to be prosecuted? That's my decision. He's not going to talk about you, but it's my decision to invite him on my show and ask him a question, and I reserve that right. Yes, Mr. Yadav, please conclude, sir.
You can, but no, I'll not let him to talk about me.
No, he's not talking about you, sir. The issue is larger than you and Mr. Yadav and me. I think we need to talk about the issue today. Why am I talking about Teesta Setalvad? Why her? Because, 1 minute, I need to preface this. I'm talking about Teesta Setalvad. Why am I discussing Teesta Setalvad today? Because if there is a question being asked in this country that is someone being targeted for speaking out against the government, that question needs to be answered. Is she being targeted, or did she act with malice and deserves the prosecution? Both are valid questions. We have to talk about them. Yes, Mr. Yadav.
Yes. So targeting happens when you pick someone out to send a signal to the entire world. And the manner in which it is being done, to use the Supreme Court's observations within a few hours to get the Home Minister to mention her by name, and then in the name of inquiry, straight away arrest her, is clearly a message. What else is it? The message, and Mr. Sri Kumar as well. I don't know how much of an empire he has built up. I would love to discover all those things. Mr. Sri Kumar as well. What is the message? The message is, अच्छा तुम्हारी ये मजाल कि तुमने हमारे बारे में बोला, तुम्हें ठीक करते हैं. This is a message to everyone in this country who wants to stand for justice, who has the courage to speak truth, who has the courage to stand against hate, and therefore Zubair is absolutely case in point here. This is a message.
You are
Incidentally, it was very amusing for me to hear that no Muslim in this country thought that Mr. Modi was responsible.
No, that's not what he said.
Was a Muslim
he said in Gujarat. He said Gujarat. He didn't say he didn't say in India. He said in Gujarat. And since he's requested you don't comment on what he has said, then just leave him be.
No, but the gentleman said he himself took him to the International Court of Law. And he said no Muslim thought so. I mean, don't you want to laugh at it?
No, I don't want to laugh at it, Mr. Yadav. I don't want to laugh at it. I have called him because I respect his views. I respect his views. So let me, 1 minute, let me end it here. Let me end it here and get a last view from Zafar Sareshwala, because this is truly, I don't want to waste the time of my viewers in this. 1 minute. Mr. Yadav, you've had your say, and we respect all views here. Mr. Zafar Sareshwala, I will end with this. In the future, we hope that this nation never sees more riots, more issues like this. But every day, when there are incidents, there is always a set of people who come out and stand for those who have nobody. You know, who take all of that effort to go out there. We have a very strong civil society heritage in this country. Now, you think that some are bad apples, etc. My question to you is, will the actions we've seen have a chilling effect? In the future, why should anyone go and stand for someone who's a victim of a riot? Because they'll say, if the political situation changes in the years to come, I will be at the receiving end. What is your comment on that, sir?
Yeah. You know, these people who come on television channels, they don't even know how Muslims suffer or they have suffered. They just come for their, you know, TRPs here. Now, coming to this point, yes, but was Teesta Setalvad, the $1 million question is this for me, right from the beginning. Did Teesta Setalvad and the world stood for the Muslims? How many Muslims they stood for? Except, well, that's why that question is mine. Was Ehsan Jafri alone the victim of 2002 riot? There were 1,600 people at least were brutally killed. There were at least 1,000 business houses, shops in Ahmedabad city alone which were burnt to cinders. Did Teesta talk of anybody else other than the Jafris? That is the question.
No, but why should she be put in? Why should she
Did
be
she ever come
targeted
to
for
people
coming
like
for the
us?
Jafris? I mean, what is the problem? She went, was standing by Zakia Jafri as she claims to.
See, in this case, ultimately we have rule of law in the country, and yes, she has all the right to face that or to protect herself from that. So it will ultimately happen. So she is not the only first person who has been arrested. Lot of wrong things are happening to a lot of people in this country. So you can't make a case just with Teesta Setalvad. So that's why I said I am not getting into that what has happened day before yesterday or before that. My point is right from 2003 that the way you are having problem now, that why Teesta has been arrested, why these people have problem when somebody or a group of people sits down and talks with Mr. Narendra Modi. The problem is that whoever was doing that, they used to abuse them. They used to call them names. That was the problem.
Okay. So a lot of different points of view coming in here. I have to wrap up. Mr. Yadav, last 10 seconds, but no personal comments.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that Teesta Setalvad was not the Director General of Police of Gujarat, nor was she the public prosecutor, whose responsibility it should be then to find out every single culprit. And if by that logic, if we were to start applying such logic in this country, then all those who were trying to find the culprits of the anti-Sikh riots of Delhi, they would all end up in jail in this country.
The charges against her framed under the IPC are very clear. They're about fabricating of evidence. They're about forgery. They will now stand up to scrutiny in a court of law. And of course, that's when perhaps we'll have the final conclusion. Thank you so much, Mr. Yadav and Mr. Sareshwala, for joining us on the show.